Good morning, traders. Today is Friday, October 14th. My name is Charles, and this is the Pirate Traders live stream. All right, well, let's just take a quick second to look at what happened yesterday before we jump into today. So we've had a lot of momentum to the downside in the market over the last week or so. And yesterday in the pre-market, when the CPI numbers came out, the market had a massive sell-off where it pushed lower. We opened yesterday at lower prices with a very large gap that we had left behind to the upside. We tested that overnight low. We poked below there. There were no new sellers, so we started to pull back up to fill the gap. Now, we were able to, pretty normally come back up, fill the gap, but then right when we got back up into the previous day's range, right where we would have expected the market to have to spend some time and have some two-sided trade, instead, some news came out from the ECB. The market had an immediate spike higher and started to build volume at higher prices, okay? So then it continued to trend for hours and hours. Actually, let's just expand that out. So it continued to trend. It pushed up in the D period, continued to trend in the E, the F, the G, the H, and even the L period. And we didn't get cessation of a trend. We didn't get the market telling us it was done going up until we got here to the J period. Okay? But then the market did something very, very interesting. It didn't go down. It just stayed up here, and it just continued to spend more and more time and bring more and more volume in up here at higher prices, which gave us an indication it didn't need to pull back with price, as we'd been assuming, and that it was ready for continuation to the upside. Now, we couldn't close with a spike. We couldn't quite make the spike happen at the end of the day, so that was slightly less bullish. But having made that move, having come and first filled the gap, which was the end of this auction process, and then news, it was just a coincidence that it happened to take place exactly at the same time, and then news, a new event in the market, changed the atmosphere once again, and then the market spent the rest of the afternoon telling us, hey guys, we're good. We don't need to head back down. Whatever change has taken place in the market, we can get continuation based on that. Okay, so here we are now this morning. The overnight inventory is net long, and we're about to open with a gap up. A gap up is the market telling us it still has momentum. This new momentum that was created yesterday is not over, and it is still happening. So the first order of business when the market opens this morning is to come back, just like we did yesterday, come back and fill that gap, right? Come back down and test yesterday's high. If we are able to pull back down and test yesterday's high, whether or not we find support there will give us an indication of what to expect moving forward. If we find support there, that is very, very bullish as what we call a gap and go scenario, which would mean there is still momentum and the market wants to keep going higher. If it can't, if it pulls back down to yesterday's high and it doesn't find support there, then we'd expect it to pull back down and start testing the support it created in the overnight, in yesterday, and so on and so forth. And we just monitor for continuation lower. Okay? I expect there'll be a lot of support around the POC of the overnight because, again, that's where we did all that business even after cessation yesterday and all this business in the overnight. So I suspect this is very strong support in here, even if we don't get a gap and go. And then, of course, the third scenario is we may not fill the gap at all. The market could open and just immediately start to head higher. That, too, would be a gap and go, which would be bullish. So let's see what the market has for us. First order of business, filling the gap back down to yesterday's high, 36.98, and looking for support there. John Lash, thank you for the heads up. Bot attack incoming at 10. That is exactly how I want the news delivered to me. That was perfect. Can I get a gap fill first thing in the morning? A gap fill to start the Friday. All right, they're starting to build support above the open. That's a little bit bullish. Can they hold the halfback now? 37.06. Okay, testing halfback. All right, well, they don't have the buyers yet. Heading back to fill the gap. Looking for buyers at 98. Okay, there's that gap filled. Ooh, and right when we get back to the zero line too. Perfect. So now can the buyers keep the market above the zero line? Getting back to the zero line implies that any overnight traders that were long have had a chance to take profits. So now we're going to get an indication, is it new buyers that start to step in here? Or new sellers? Okay, so we're getting support at yesterday's high. We're holding the ticks, and we're getting good taper at the low. So as of now, this is looking like a gap and go. So now are they able to push their way back through the opening price? All right, back to the opening price. We have a gap and go, which is bullish. They did leave a weak low behind, but it's good taper, and it, like I said, it's a gap and go. So I'm not going to get too obsessed with the weak low. The next target to the upside is testing the overnight high. Getting up above 37.18 would be getting back into a previous gap down. So there is potential that that magnet of the gap fill up to 37.51 could pull the market up there. But first, let's just wait and see what happens at the overnight high. Okay, we're now in that previous gap. All right, so now we're looking for support. And we're looking for those ticks to hold above that zero line. Yeah, NQ, same as the ES. Not quite as clean a gap and go. They did pull a bit down into yesterday's range. But still look for support right here at where we currently are at yesterday's high. And as long as they keep support there, they can, well, okay. I was going to say, as long as they can keep support there, it's still a gap and go. It still has momentum. But if they start to pull back down into yesterday's range, they're likely to need to pull down to like probably 11,080, looking for support there. Okay, I'm not loving the fact that we're building up this volume cliff right here, exactly at the 0 line. If this breaks and we start to head back into yesterday's range, we'll squeeze all these buyers. All right, no gap and go. So it looks like we need to pull down into yesterday's range, looking for support. For the ES, that's going to be probably somewhere around 36.87 and then 36.80, 81. All right, so as I said, there's lots of places for the market to find support here since we spent so much time grinding around here, the second half of yesterday and in the overnight. So where it finds support could give us some indications moving forward. Obviously, the higher it finds support, the more bullish. And of course, if it breaks all the way down below the overnight low, then it starts to get bearish. Again, the idea here that we're playing is that the overnight trading, the way it did, building up volume in the same place that we did yesterday, okay, and then giving us the gap up this morning is the market telling us it still has momentum to the upside, that it has not run out of momentum. So if we break below that overnight low, well, that narrative disappears. But as long as we're still inside the overnight range, that narrative is still in play. Alex, what's support for the Q? Well, you're there right now. 11,050. And then down at 11,013. And same thing as the ES. You break the overnight low and it starts to get bearish. Man, yesterday's range was insane for the NQ. Scooball, why did I stop putting the previous day's VPOC? Honestly, I just keep forgetting, but it's totally valid. I should. Okay, more weak buyers buying at that exact level. They're creating another volume cliff. So they're trying to create support. They're trying to hold the market up like they were up here. But as soon as it breaks, boom, it gives you another pop lower because they all get squeezed at once. They're putting their stops, right here. That's some short-term trader shit right there. And they cannot be trusted. Petrus, hi there. In your product, do you show your full setup, or do you have a video that goes into the setup, chart setup, etc.? I'm not sure what you're asking. If you're asking about the e-course, is that what you mean by the product? The e-course discusses all of the things within Market Profile that I use, but not specifically like my setup. If you're a member of the brigade, though, you can, and you have Window Trader, there's in the Discord, there's a thing you can download. You can literally just instantly have my settings, if that's what you're talking about. But as far as like Market Profile goes, you can just use whatever are the standard Market Profile settings that your software uses when you open it up. And they're probably almost exactly the same as mine. I mean, they might have different colors and stuff like that, but... Tarek, welcome. Thank you for the sub. There they go again, buying that same volume cliff. They're fixing to get squeezed. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Scooball, now it's resistance. Yes, sir. That volume cliff that was support is now becoming resistance. That's a little bit bearish to see. Okay, so now does that node that was support and then became resistance, does it now become support right here at 36.88? If they want to make this the low, the current low, if they want to make that the low, they got to keep those ticks above the zero line. If these buyers get squeezed once more, we're going to get a push lower. But if they can keep those buyers stepping in, this could be a good low. It's okay taper. Hey, we made it to 100 likes. Pew, pew, pew. Unfortunately, you'll be disappointed with the banner. I'm feeling neutral. I am bullish, honestly. I just need some confirmation. I need to see this support hold and then see us push through the halfback again. And then I'll turn the banner green. Kotik, do you give the 20 moving average on the daily any regard? Yes, sir. The 20, these are simple moving averages. The 20, the 50, and the 200 tend to be extremely reliable for swing traders, for entries. So the market will often flip right on those. Why do you say? Are we near one? Ooh, yeah, because we bounced off the 20. I see you. And look, that was the exact moving average we bounced off that gave us the swing down. But you. Christopher, tell us the reasons to be bullish. It's about momentum, right? Momentum just basically means you can think about it like the greater fool theory, that like you're buying now because someone somewhere will be willing to pay you more for it in the future. So the idea of momentum is like there are still more people. There are more buyers. There are, maybe there's shorts that still need to cover. Maybe there are people who missed the move yesterday and they're, they want to get long to join it, whatever, right? It's just the idea is, well, now we're getting a change, but the idea is as long as the market's giving you signals that there is still momentum, you trust that they can keep going. That's what the gap up this morning was. Okay, well, now this conversation is pointless. So that's the news bot. And whatever those people told the University of Michigan, the market does not like it. Oh, it was forecast to be 58.8 and it was 59.8. Oh boy. Okay, so I'm going to give the market a second to absorb this news and let these news bots kind of grind around. But if the areas that I thought were going to act as support start to become resistance, I will become bearish here for a pullback down into yesterday's range, further into. We have a very low volume node here that got skipped over, when that break just happened. So there's a very high probability, even if the market wants to go lower, it's got to come back up to 83 and look for resistance there. Okay, so the B period, that fall was the liquidation. Now we're finding out, was it just a liquidation break, meaning we're going to pull right back up to where we started when the news came out, or do we get new selling? Do we start to get some resistance in here and we can't get back up into there? That should give us some insights moving forward. But anyway, getting back to the conversation about momentum, what I was talking about right before that news came out, it's a really interesting thing to kind of wrap your mind around, because as a day trader, what you find is everything is really about, on the very, very short term, about that momentum, about that feeling of like there's more and more buyers or there's more and more sellers. People are starting to panic. They're feeling really bullish, whatever it might be, right? That tempo and that feeling of like building and building and building. If you can learn to ignore your instincts, right, and trust that momentum, and the market can tell you, it can give you literal signals, you'll have way more opportunities, and more importantly, you'll have way less losses. And yesterday was such a beautiful example of that, right? And I can even speak from my own, experience yesterday. It was like, I caught the gap fill. I caught a big chunk of the move, right? But then when we had this big push up, I didn't trust it. I didn't believe they could keep going. Even though the market generated information was telling me when we were bringing in volume and spending time at higher prices, I just didn't trust it. So I wouldn't trade this up in here. And I left a lot of money on the table, obviously, right? But if I zoom in on yesterday's chart, okay, at that very moment, where I was in disbelief, where the market had pushed higher, this is the E and F period, I was in disbelief. I couldn't believe what the market was doing. I couldn't trust it. The G period gave me a chance to say, Charles, ignore your opinion. Your opinion doesn't matter, right? We're telling you we're bringing in volume and we're spending time at a higher price. And here we're spoon feeding you an opportunity where you can get long with only 1.5 points of risk based not on your opinion, but on market generated information. I literally could have put my stop right there and only taken 1.5 points of risk and gotten long at the G period low. And I didn't do it, right? I ignored the market generated information and I went with my instincts. But if I had gotten into that trade, I would have been stopped out at cessation up here. So I would have risked 1.5 points to make, just shy of 40-point move. And I would have had to do zero thinking, zero guessing, zero debating, no fear, no anxiety, just, the market's telling me I've got an excellent opportunity and I just didn't take advantage of it, right? And that's okay. You learn so that next time you're there for it. Anyways, that's what I'm trying to explain this morning when I say, or I was saying, as long as we were still in the overnight range, we still had that momentum. This is the same thing as that right here, right? We spent all this time. We brought in all this volume. The market is telling you it can keep going. So if it had been able to find support, I wouldn't want to ignore it. I'd want to catch that move. Of course, that's invalid now. As Jim Dalton would say, it will shock you how far they can push it. Don't get fooled. Okay, but now things are starting to get bearish as we are building up resistance here at yesterday's low. It looks like we were able to pull back and backfill those single prints. I'm sorry, that low volume node. So they've got the momentum, as I was just discussing, now building to the downside. David V. Do you think that ideally a good trader should learn to disregard instinct? It's the most difficult question in the world to answer because it's a yes and a no. There are times when your instincts are good and they save you, and there are times where your instincts betray you. The trick to trading is when they betray you, you don't lose money. So this is a great example. I didn't lose any money yesterday. It wasn't like shorting it or anything, but I just missed the chance to make money. So that's kind of the way I think about it, is like my instincts might stop me from getting into a trade that I'm afraid I'll lose money. And I might miss a chance to make some. But as long as your instincts are still valuable, you should still pay attention to them. But it's just one of those things. Every time my instincts are telling me something and the market generated information is telling me another thing, when I look back at it in hindsight, the market was always right. But at the same time, my instincts are very valuable. So it's yes and no. Okay, I'm now bearish with this resistance at the overnight low. Feels like we need to pull back down into yesterday's range a little bit. We've got support. Was that in a base of single prints? It's blocked by the thing. Yeah, base of E single prints up. So we got some support in the base of the E single prints up, left behind from yesterday. Never mind. I don't know why that's there. So yeah, I would say support around 36.50. If that breaks, targeting a repair of 36.33 and monitoring for continuation lower from there. Doesn't it just drive you crazy that this trend line's been sitting here the whole time? My man, why don't you just put a short there? Just in case as a swing trade. Christopher, I guess momentum is on its way down now. Yes, sir. That resistance at the overnight low we just got, that was a sign that we're now building momentum down. We've run out of buyers. We've had some two-sided trade. That's what the overnight was a little bit of balance. And now we're breaking the other way. And we'll push down until we find support. It's an auction, and it goes two ways. It's a two-way auction. Skewball test of balance area high. Yeah, it's so hard though, man. Just look at the daily. What is the balance? You know what I mean? The heck is it? Is this the balance? Is this the balance? I just don't know. So I'm going to focus just on momentum. I think they can find support anywhere in here. And until they do, I'll assume they're just going to keep going down. There's also a look above and fail aspect to it as well. I would say if we start to get into the single prints left behind from yesterday. You know, these single prints right here, this is excess in the market. Okay, there's two ways to balance off that excess. We can either push up and then rotate at higher prices, or we have to pull back with price. So if we repair this weak reference at 33 and we don't find some support up here, we start to get back into these single prints. It then increases the odds we need to rotate down and backfill those D period single prints from yesterday. So obviously it's too early to make that call right now, but that's also in the cards. Ooh, yeah, Gorman. NQ dancing right on the razor's edge. I would even consider that B low very weak. So yeah, if the NQ doesn't literally find support right now, and it starts to head down into those single prints, it becomes a repair with price, not time. Right? They need to come back with price. Kevin, considering yesterday's action, we could either end the day at 3,300 or all-time highs. I know it definitely felt that way. It's not, it's always funny when you zoom out after the fact and you like look at the daily candle. It wasn't really that big of a deal. We have lots of days where we have that kind of volatility, Here was another example of that where they had even more volatility. Here was another example where they engulfed the previous day like that. But it sure felt crazy at the time. James, the last 200-point day was the last CPI. I think you're right, actually. It was the previous CPI day. Fighter pilot, yeah, I love this. Got to work on saving any disbelief for after the close. That's such a great way to put it. Every time we find ourselves in disbelief, we just have to remind ourselves, we'll think about that after the market's closed. Then we'll reassess. Right now, what is it doing? Okay, we didn't quite repair that weak reference, so now the B period low is weak. Okay, there's the repair. So now the question is, was turning off that magnet enough to bring in the buyers? Can we find some support in here and turn around and start heading back up? If not, things get bearish back in these single prints. Bearisher. They just keep on selling. They just keep on selling. All right. Excuse me. So the NQ is back in those single prints that we left behind in the D period yesterday. But it's also right in this big old node of support where the market has spent a lot of time and brought in a lot of volume. So I don't suspect it's going to be like a liquidation. I think it's going to be a very slow grind to get through here. But this is bearish and increases the odds that we need to repair the excess created yesterday with price. Mind. Robert, do I talk about responsive and initiative buying and selling in my course? No, that's a bookmap thing. That's an order flow thing, not a market profile thing. But it's the same exact concept. It's the idea of new buyers, new sellers. You know, are the buyers covering shorts or are they new? You know, I'm sorry. Are the buyers covering shorts or are they new buyers? Are they getting liquidated from longs or are they new sellers? So it's the exact same conceptual ideas. It's just using different terminology. New sellers at the low. It's bearish. So you can see now what I talked about before. They're beginning to get momentum. Think about it very, very short term. Change in the market when the Michigan statement came out. Built up resistance, pushed lower. Built up resistance, pushed lower. What are we doing right now? Same thing, building up resistance. That's momentum. They're beginning to get momentum down. All right, so as we're getting ready to print that next TPO, this is essentially the game plan the way I see it. I am looking for resistance beneath the overnight low. It can go a little bit in there. You know, it can go up to like 36.64, but resistance at that overnight low for continuation lower, back down into the range. The first real support I see for the market is around 36.09. That might be enough for a bounce and a move sideways from there, but we'll have to wait and see. As I've said, it gets very bearish back inside these single prints. That is getting below 36.19. As far as changing me from no longer being bearish, if we can get up through the resistance around 64, get back up into that overnight range, I would switch back to neutral. But as long as we continue the momentum lower, I suspect price will follow. So I remain bearish. With that, I will say goodbye to all of you. Goodbye. Goodbye to you. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the 125 likes. And I look forward to seeing you all here on Monday morning. If you are digging what I'm talking about here, if the two-way auction process is something that might interest you and you might want to learn more about it, consider checking out that e-course. There's a link at the top of the comments. You know, it's $130. I know it's a big hit, but that's only 3 points on the ES. And I guarantee you there is a lot of valuable information in there. Surely enough to help you get 3 points at some point in your career, which would make it pay for itself. Something to consider. Thank you very much, and we will see you here on Monday morning. Members of the brigade, let's cast the mainsails. I don't know what you say. Some Shipley thing instead of let's ride. Let's navigate. No. Hoist the mainsail. All right, goodbye. Ooh, anchors away. That's the win. Anchors away.